Hello and welcome to Platforming Community Live. I'm your co-host Pete Heslop and I'm joined by Jacob Dilley.
Hey, how's it going?
So what is Platforming Community Live? Well, it's a regular show where Jacob and I dig into the nitty-gritty of community platforms, how they help brands grow and scale in a sustainable and healthy way. For a little bit of context, I lead the team at Steadfast Collective and we craft bespoke community platforms for a variety of brands and organizations across the UK. I've been working with software platforms for roughly the last 14 years, and I'm passionate about the impact that community has. And I spend much of my waking day thinking about how we can create better places and spaces for communities to thrive. Jacob, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great place to start. Is that whole realms of communities and development of Pete's been focusing on how to make them thrive. I focus on the engagement side of things. So from a design perspective, so for myself, I am here at Steadfast Collective as head of clients and creative. So I particularly lead the creative team in designing platforms and designing community platforms, how to best engage people and users within that as well. I've been doing this for over 10 years now, leading UI and UX strategies and teams. And yeah, so I'm quite passionate in actually getting people to be retained in communities, but also engage in them as well.
Fab. That's great. So we are live here today. So if you've got any thoughts or feelings you want to share with us, feel free to do it in the comments below. But otherwise, we're going to jump straight into today's topic. So today's topic is all about onboarding. So really leans into Jacob's expertise here. So let's kick things off with a simple question, Jacob. What does onboarding mean for your general average Joe or Jane who might be listening?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, onboarding in general, just finding a place in my case there. There you go. Onboarding in general is when people have discovered your community. You can talk about this from SaaS products and everything as well, but when they discovered your community, it's about how you then get them ingrained and connected within that community. So there's several stages along the sort of customer journey of that. Awareness is where they find out about it, then they might consider it and find out about, is this a community that's right for me, and the different value from there. At the point where they then say, I want to be a part of this, it's bringing them in that can bring them in smoothly, but then also start to get them engaged in the community as well. It's not so much about just getting them to become a member. It's about how can you get them to actually engage in that community too.
Okay, fab, wonderful. So a really simple an example, if someone still might be a little bit lost on what like just the core of onboarding is, would be something like joining a forum for your local running club or joining your local sports club, and they have some sort of platform that when you log in, you then get more information and you can engage. So the onboarding process starts from you first hitting the website and then kind of continues all the way through until you're an active and engaged member. Now, most people will be focusing on those first couple of steps. Ultimately, have you got your username? Have you got your password? Have we exchanged some sort of data for some sort of access? But what you're saying actually goes much further in going, well, onboarding consideration should go all the way through until we feel like somebody is a real advocate for the community and doesn't just stop at once they've got a username.
That's exactly right. So having it as just a signing up process is not onboarding at all. That can apply into like vanity metrics, which is which a lot of people rely on, land on, which are things like how many members you have in the platform. But if 95 of those members aren't engaging, then that's not actually useful. It's not a community people are going to want to be a part of and connect with. So it's about actually getting people to be engaging in your community.
Okay. So big topic around onboarding. It's huge. You know, even when I think about onboarding new members of staff into the team, that is a huge undertaking of what we do, and a lot of thought goes into it and a lot of planning. Where can people, where should we begin? Where should people begin when it comes to thinking about their onboarding process for their community or their platform?
I mean, it starts with the idea of why the community exists in the first place, right? So, inevitably, like, having a community is a group of passionate people who are there to sort of talk about or find out information about a topic or a certain thing. So, you have to understand that people are coming with a certain mindset and the intent of people coming in. That could be on communities like the Asana community or Atlassian or some sort of product community. It's often there to find out information or to raise queries or to ask questions. So it's coming in as much more of a forum style thing. Then you've got the other side of things, which is like people might be there for mentorship or there to just engage with local people for the definition of the word community and things like that. So obviously it comes down onto the aim of the community and its aim, the intent of people coming to that community in the first place. But above all, as much as that passion is there, for a community to be successful, it literally just comes down to retaining members is a goal of a community, is a goal of like not the marketing goal of a community, but you know what I'm talking about. So is to engage, retain those members, and you do that through getting them to engage as well and be engaged with. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. It's good. So if we're thinking about planning out our onboarding process, so let's say we have a community platform, we're designing a platform for runners to meet and they can form their own running clubs and they can organize runs on a Saturday or a Sunday or whatever. Let's use that as our kind of basis. We're designing it with kind of UX and user experience in mind. When people first hit the landing page, we've segmented the audience. People know this is for runners and people who are trying to find other runners to run with. So we've done that. We've set the scene. How much is too much data to collect up front? So obviously we're going to need to know their name. We're going to need to know an email address. And then that's kind of enough to let them into something. How much data from a UX point of view would you be looking to collect?
Yeah, the barriers to entry is always something that comes in within the onboarding processes, and there's different ways of sort of bringing people in. You can go, I think, like not necessarily community onboarding, but for a SaaS product, so ClickUp, for example, has quite an intensive onboarding process about setting up the company and things like that, and it can become a bit draining. But the reason for that is, so often you'll see a notice of be like, what's your company size? And things like that will then tie into the marketing goals, be like, oh, this person's got a company size of 300 people. We probably want them to be spending $20, $30 a month or whatever it is. But the barriers for entry are, you can have more of these touch points, the more value is perceived of your platform usually. So something like ClickUp or Asana have the gravitas behind them to extend that, whereas if you're just starting up, you probably do want to have a shorter kind of term. But there are really important things to capture as well. So if we talk about running club, for example, there's quite a specific reason that people are there, right? Is to connect with people, is to find out times where they might be meeting up, set up events and things like that. So you could probably have quite a short journey of who are you. The thing to capture there maybe is whether they are a beginner or intermediate or more advanced in that kind of in the skill that they can do, because that means that you can. If you've got some intelligence behind your platform as well, you can then connect them with the right people. You can start pointing them the right way. So as much as we want to reduce the barriers of onboarding, of coming through the sign-up process, reducing things too much means you can't then tailor the contact to them, which might mean that they don't then perceive the value straight off. So it does really need to be tailored to that kind of audience.
There's two things I picked up on there. So there's data we need to get you in, but there's data for personalization. Now, nothing is more annoying than when you're signing up for anything and you have no idea why they're asking for that piece of data. Like, they don't. But let's say Asana asks for my passport number. Like, why? What are you doing with it? Like, if you're going to ask for some data, especially data that might be effort to input, you need to explain why. But also, once I get in, I need to see quite quickly the value of that. So if I've just told you on this fairly long form that I'm an advanced runner and I like to run, 3 marathons a week, and I then go in and you're then suggesting me training plans for Couch to 5K, that's going to be instantly frustrating because I've just told you. So I feel like there needs to be that kind of marrying up between data collection and actually use. Because if you're not using it, then why are you storing it?
Absolutely, and it's a real balance of like the core data, the sign up data of putting in your email address and password to set it up, and it's almost like having an onboarding wizard. In some cases as well, I think do have to give people the option to like skip or something. In most scenarios, you can give people the option to skip. But ideally, you don't want people to skip. So therefore, you're absolutely right, given the clarity of the value as to why we're collecting this data, so we can help direct you to the right places is super important.
So someone's gone through, they've signed up, they've skipped, they've given you the bare minimum data, but as a platform or as a community, it would actually be a lot more beneficial for them and for you if they would give you some more. How are you convincing them to come back to finish their profile?
Oh, it's always a really difficult conversation thing to come back to. It's made easier by having an active community. So having an active community that can engage with people. So one of the things that people when they come into the community, something that they absolutely love is to obviously feel welcome and engaged. So if there's some sort of automation that can come in that can welcome that person in, or if it's you're encouraging them to announce themselves to the community, your job is made far better and far easier if that community is then saying hello, welcome, what is it you're looking for? So if the welcome message is something like, hey, just introduce yourself, tell us your name, what level you're at, what you're looking for, that's a much more informal way of presenting that data. Now, to capture that data is a bit of a faff, but at least you're trying to get them engaged at that point, which then allows you as kind of a next step, whether it's in a messaging channel, whether it's via email, whether it's through a notification or something, is to say, hey, look, let's complete your profile just so we can point you in the right direction, connect with the right people you're looking for. So it's if you can make people feel welcome and comforting, would then help that go on, rather than necessarily just sending them a notification 2 days later to say complete your profile and receive your 100% completed badge and gamification stuff.
Like lots of things in community, it's just good hospitality, right? Like, it would be odd if I knocked on your door to come round for a dinner party, and before I'd even stepped in the door, you'd asked me a load of questions. What do you want for a drink? Like, and I'm like, well, let me just get in the door first. So, you gave a good example there, but like another one that popped into my head might be, I've just posted in the forum or just posted in the community, and I haven't uploaded a profile photo. Great, let's just nudge them then. Congrats, you've just done your first post. Wouldn't it be fun if people knew what you look like? Or like, let people know who they're talking to. You haven't actually filled out your name yet. Like, those sorts of things. And I think it's just finding that right time where it doesn't feel like an inconvenience, but actually, you've given me some value. Yeah, I'll give you some value back. Like, actually, it's kind of this is a fair exchange. But it's so off-putting when you land on a huge onboarding form and you're like, I don't know if this is going to be worth signing up for. Like, that's going to take me a good 10 minutes. And you're asking a lot of questions here. And it is that kind of perceived data, that perceived value transfer, right?
Yeah, exactly. And there are tricks you can do if we go down into the specifics of the user experience, there are some tricks that you can do to help if you do need to capture, I don't know, try and capture quite a lot of data. The ways, rather than necessarily just having, this is a 4-step approach, you click on one step and it's this long type thing. That means you're already setting the tone that the other 3 steps are going to be that long as well. So you could potentially reduce the form fields that you're seeing, maybe remove your steps and have it more as a loading bar. And like a loading bar back in when your computer loads, it's still now, but where it used to load, and it starts off quickly but then slows down and things. Little tricks of the trade to give the illusion of faster progress. Once someone's in, usually after two steps, once they complete that second step, then they are likely to continue because they've already given that effort in initially. So there are small tricks that you can do, and there's lots of articles about that, sort of capturing those details. But ideally, you just want people to actually, particularly with the community side of things, you want people to understand the value they're getting. You can add in maybe some little testimonials along the journey as well, or little validation points or success messages, just to help people feel, oh, I am going to get, if I do put this effort in, I am going to get something.
So Jacob, we've got a client that has come to us, pretend client has come to us, and they've been working with another team, and they decide, they're really struggling with actually getting people. They're getting loads of traffic to the start of their onboarding flow. People are hitting the sign up page, and it's a free community, but it turns out that just the drop off is huge. Like, they know it's above industry average. What's the 3 or 4 things you're going to do to try and diagnose the issue, and then maybe a couple of 1 or 2 quick wins that you might implement, so we can see some good progress before we start really digging into the nitty gritty of what's going on? So how are we going to diagnose the issue to start with?
There's two things to look at in this. So there's the initial flow. There's always the initial flow of being like, if we tweak this label here, or maybe it's the message on the sign up button or something like this, and that's usually where people land first. Is like, right, we need to have a look at Google Tag Manager Analytics or Hotjar and see how people are moving about the page and things like that. Whereas actually from my side, the second thing is what's the expectations that have been set. So if we talk about social ads or something like that, or paid ads or whatever the advert might be initially, is I personally find that's where the issue lies.
What's the traffic driver?
Exactly. So for a running club, for example, it could be that maybe race against others, or find your racing buddy, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of like a Strava type message that is almost like you can score your times and map your times. If that's part of the ad that's driving people to the community, or the post that's driving people to the community, but then people land on the landing page, and maybe within that initial tagline or statement or the description below, you're talking about how you can connect and meet up with people for running. Whereas actually, so the expectation might be more of a virtual running tracking product than necessarily what's going on. So there's a misalignment of expectation. So people are starting and realize, oh no, wait, this isn't what I want. Actually, you're going to get drop-offs anyway, and drop-offs, like a certain amount of drop-off level is probably good, because hopefully it means you're filtering out the people who have landed there by mistake.
Yeah, correct.
But when you're driving so many people there, and no one's signing up, usually there's a misalignment going on. So that's usually where I like to start is, okay, how are people discovering the community in the first place? How are people finding out about the community? Actually, and then when they land on the page, just making sure that you've got really clear kind of tagline and description, and things as well. Funnily enough, Gareth Wilson has just done a talk with Rosieland about onboarding community. This was one of the things that he was talking about in the beginning, was that landing page, and he's done. We'll pop a link into this as well, actually. But he's gone and gathered some great community platform onboarding journeys. And one of that is the landing page, and he separates out the tagline and the description, and sort of gives some guidances on how to best set the right tone for the value people are going to get. So actually, that, rather than us going detailed into that, Gareth's already done it. So I'd recommend going and have a look at see what Gareth's done. But it's that misalignment of expectation.
That's good.
If that's not there, if it is fairly clear, the next step is then doing a lot of technical and user tests. Is to really is and you can do this via Hotjar. You don't need to go full scale of getting 20 people in a room and going through the journey, because there'll be different nuances that other people face. Are people mainly coming to this on their mobile? Are they mainly coming to it on the desktop device? Therefore, maybe the structure of the page isn't right. Maybe the tone of the sign up isn't right maybe as a message. It can be quite nuanced,
Yeah.
but at that point, my place to go would then to be actually the community that you do have.
Yeah.
If you do have some members of the community and say, hey, we're seeing a lot of drop-offs, we'd love your feedback. How can we get other people engaged in this community? What is it that drove you to us? But also, if you were to start again, what would you look to change? Things like that, because they've actually actively been through the process. In terms of quick wins, it's so unique
Can
to
I
the
offer one?
community that you're doing. Yeah, go for it.
Whatever you're doing, it's probably too complicated. If the right people are landing on the page, but they're not going through, either there's not enough perceived value or you've just made it too complicated. People don't know what they're signing up for.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
You
mean? Like,
just
it's just...
yeah, whether that's complexity of messaging, whether that's complexity of layout, whether that's complexity of the fields that you have to set up. I mean, even having name and first name as an initial field that people see get in the way of people doing it, because you're just adding fields. If you're join this community, there's your email address. That's the starting point. Yeah, simplicity is a win as long as you're conveying the right message and value.
Yeah, it's likely you're just, and the complexity might just be in your thinking as well. Like the way you're trying to explain it is probably over, you're probably overthinking it. It's sometimes, we get invited into communities, or I might be trying to join a platform, and I just don't quite know what I'm actually going to get when I hit that button and transfer my data to you. Like, what am I actually going to receive 5 minutes later? Is my life going to be better in 5 minutes later, or am I just going to get endless emails from you? Like, what's going on?
A really good. We're talking about digital communities, community platforms here primarily, and you can take some insights from sort of like SaaS products as well that can be here in the presentation of your community. So there's a fantastic company, Spiralize, who are kind of like an A/B testing company, but they're not. They basically scraped loads of A/B data, so they start doing A/B testing with what's already been tested and what's worked, and people have more of an attraction to seeing the representations of the platform initially. So if it's a picture, say that you land on, you've got your tagline description, and then you've got maybe a add your email to sign up, and then over on the right hand side you've got an image, might be people chatting together and things like that. Actually, they found that if that image changed to an image of the actual digital platform in itself, maybe pulling out some of the key features and some little flyouts as well, the engagement and connection that is much greater, because you are giving people the comfort that they're stepping into something digital, and you're showing them some of those key features as well. So that's a little tip and insight. It's just to elevate more of the product that you have. If the consideration is that your product doesn't look very good, you can stylize things slightly to help them look a bit better. Obviously, you don't want to change it fully, because then people are just going to get irritated when they come in from that as well. But work with a designer who can maybe put something like that together.
Great. Fab. Should we try and summarize this into something useful?
Yeah, let's do it.
So what I heard was that onboarding is, of course, it's that first bit where somebody lands and decides to give you some sort of data to get access to what you're doing. But actually, we're talking about it being a continuous process. It doesn't end until somebody... doesn't really end ever, really, but we're talking about maybe... you'd probably end when someone's an advocate, when they're really, engaged and daily involved, right? Cool. So that's something that's really important to go. And then we're talking about how with onboarding... What was the next point?
With onboarding... Hang on, let me just refer to my notes. And then the actual onboarding flows.
Yeah.
Things like that as well. Keeping them simple, but you still need to capture data for the personalization.
Yeah.
That as well. There's you want people to feel like you're immediately elevating what it is that they're there for.
Yeah.
And you can do that really simply and smoothly. But then also, if you can engage them further by having a welcoming and hospitable environment with your other members as well, is really super.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today. Jacob and I have really enjoyed kind of chatting, and hopefully you've managed and enjoyed listening to it. We'll be back next week with another community platform. Nope. Platforming Community Live. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to Jacob and I just via the Steadfast site or via LinkedIn. We'll see you next week.